glorious either way, but the fact that the sword presents itself through the sorting hat is like
sorting hat.
The sorting hat, the sorting hat, the sorting hat.
Yeah.
Like it's like oh my gosh, and of course the sorting hat being the other viable option of an artifact of Godric Gryffindor's.
Yeah.
That could have been used. However, I suspect the reason that the sorting hat wouldn't have been a great candidate for this final Horcrux is due to the fact that it's like being missing would be might invite seekers, so to speak.
For sure.
It's like a lot of these other artifacts are.
If you uncover the Sword of Gryffindor, like no one's even going to know.
Exactly. Yeah. Right. Yes. Exactly. Because nobody otherwise really, similar to the diadem of Ravenclaw, it's like nobody really knows where it is. So,
right.
But anyway, I mean, as far as those things are concerned, I mean, the lost diadem of Ravenclaw has been gone for literal like centuries, almost a millennium. Whereas, the sort of like, so if anything, it seems like the diadem is still harder to get.
I know.
So I love the idea that Voldemort was walking into the Potters that night. Although with the only thing that I could imagine being so unbelievably cool, although it would change the entire story, is an unarmed Lily, being in the room, basically like defending her son no matter what, having an instance where the sword just like appears in her hand or something, and then she's like Lily standing there with the sword of Gryffindor against Voldemort would be. I mean, the epic scene crazy. In my head. It's like we could do an entire what if, where what if the sword of Gryffindor presented itself to
Lily,
to Lily in that moment,
she just slashes him down,
and
right
she just
there.
wins. Yeah, that's just it. No other story.
Yeah, that's it. That's it. End of game right there. Voldemort. I guess it wouldn't have the basilisk venom yet. So this is another one. It's like the sword of Gryffindor must have like other magical properties inside of it that like Harry and Hermione and Dumbledore never like activate or even aware of, like,
true,
is the basilisk venom the first time it ever absorbed something that made it stronger? Like that doesn't seem right.
No, it doesn't seem likely at all.
Yeah.
And so I suspect that if we ever learn more history of that sword, we'll learn a lot more of what that thing had at its disposal.
I so badly want there to be a Founder series where you just get to see Gryffindor out there like wielding the sword and doing his thing. And,
it would be so cool. It would be so cool.
Hamming it up with old Sal.
Right. The best of buds.
The best of buds. You just imagine Helga and Rowena where they're just rolling their eyes like they left again, didn't they? They're going, okay.
Did he bring the sword?
He bring the sword? I'll get the cup.
It's like, what does the cup do?
What does the cup do? I know.
It turns water to wine. I think we know that much.
That would be the fun part about the Founders is that they like until like the very like the end of the show, the four of them are just best buds. Like they're actual friends.
Yes.
And it's like, and I mean, obviously there's a big crack at the end and that's tragic or whatever, but for the majority of the show, they're all just chums.
Right. Like you love their friendship.
Like you love that. That has to be it. That has to be it.
It does. It does. Someday we'll get it.
Someday will be a Founder series, and that I can't wait. That's the number one thing that I want from Harry Potter.
There you go. Well, Jay, I think to kind of close out today's episode, I think there's a couple of other like little tidbits that I would love to touch on.
Okay, absolutely.
I think one of the big things that I reflected on a lot as I was reading, this first chapter, especially like hard copy as we're saying, like kind of going through and like feeling the pages, seeing the words on like in text and everything. I mean, it does bring me back, and I was reminiscing a lot on kind of exactly what we said. Reading it to, our dad reading it to us when we were kids. I think the other big one is there's this one line in particular that I think like hit me so hard. Because since reading these pages for the first time as a young kid, we both now have our own kids, kids of our own. I've got my daughter Addison, and you've got your three boys.
Yes, I do. Got my own troublesome twins, Nick and Nate, and then my eldest son Luke.
Yep. Yeah. But the line that got me was the one small hand closed on the letter beside him.
Oh.
And this is just like one of those things where it's like, I mean, my like Addie's coming up on being 2 as of recording this, and it's like it is one of those things like where a lot of times I'll put her to bed and I'll pull her up on the monitor. I'll see her like holding on to like her like little like kind of rectangle of fabric that she calls her Ono, but it's like that thought of like seeing this like small child clutching onto this letter that's going to be so impactful for the rest of his life. It's just very emotional. It's like, oh my gosh, like the poor kid You know, he's just lost
He's
everything,
just a little
and
boy. He has no idea.
yeah, and he's about to be laughed with.
Just the worst people, and they're gonna lie to him about what happened for the next 10 years.
Yes, yeah, just really. I mean, it's like I think my heart goes out to baby Harry so hard. So that was just what I wrote in the margin next to that one was just tears. You know, because I think I was just very very emotional moment.
I know it changes when you get older.
It does. Yeah, a big perspective shift when you're now looking at it through the lens of parenthood.
Yeah, like that's not would bring a parent to tears for so I read that book as a child and then as a parent because it's a different sense of it. So that yeah, different lens for sure. Yeah, that's the best way to describe it.
And of course the last one, you know, one of my favorite things I think is, you know, the clever naming of the chapter is simply The Boy Who Lived. But ultimately there's a small modification that you can make to that phrase that sort of sums up the whole series from the very beginning, which is changing the word from lived to loved. And it's Harry Potter, the boy who loved, and eventually what we'll see unfold with this character, with this story, is that this is really the defining characteristic that Harry is capable of. That
secret weapon.
Yes, and you know, I mean, it's. You know, you see it be so difficult for Dumbledore to ingrain this message into Harry, and you know, I think at some point in time, like Harry says, like, yeah, I can love, big, you know,
big deal.
I had to hold myself from saying, yeah, big deal. But it is really like a remarkable thing, and I've always loved that, you know, that it's like that the you're literally one letter off from
the
like,
boy who loved.
Yeah, like, and I almost feel like it would have made for a fantastic final chapter name, like if the story had started
changed
with the boy who
loved. Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, you almost could have called the last chapter, or the chapter where, like, I think it's called The Forest or something.
The Forest Again.
The Forest Again. That one could have been called The Boy Who Lived. Like, also.
Yes, that's true.
They could just done it again.
It would have been
that's what
amazing.
it could have been. I guess you could have called King's Cross The Boy Who Lived or something. I don't know. You even could have just done the very last chapter. It could have been bookended the whole thing.
That's true.
That would have been kind of funny. King's Cross is a pretty appropriate title name, I think, for that chapter. But we're way off that one.
I know. Yeah, we got a ways to go. So, but
We still with that one. That's like the seventh book. So, we might book one. So we always do. Which will be like 4 years from now.
wait, do you have any other closing thoughts? How did you feel kind of coming through this first chapter of our saga?
Oh, I mean, I loved it. This chapter is so fun. I mean, it sets up so many things so well. You get introduced to like so many big characters. There's other tiny little things I think are funny that, like, at the end, Dumbledore, he apparates off the spot, and then like McGonagall turns back into a cat and slinks off, and it's like, why didn't you just apparate too? That doesn't make sense.
It's like,
why did you?
So you go back to school?
Yeah, I know.
Yeah,
I think he even says that. He says, "I'll see you soon."
Right.
You mean tomorrow at class, right?
Right. Like literally immediately when we arrive outside
we're
of
going to
Hogwarts.
the same place, all three of us, because we all work there together.
Right.
Yeah, I think that's pretty funny. Then Hagrid flies off on the motorbike, and it's like, what happened to the motorbike? You know, it's just gone for 7 books, and then it shows up again.
It shows back up. Yeah, it's the thing that delivers him there. It's the thing that will eventually take him away from there.
Yeah, I think that's funny.
That is no mistake in my mind. I think eventually, when it comes to the inevitable removal of Harry, from the Dursleys, the fact that he entered and exited in
on
the same
motorbike, with the same person,
like that's on purpose.
That's absolutely on purpose. That's another great bookend. I think there is a fun chapter. This like fast forwards the Chamber of Secrets a little bit. There's a chapter, there's a paragraph here where Dumbledore's explaining why it's important that Harry grow up away from being famous. He says, it would be enough to turn any boy's head. Famous before he can walk and talk, famous for something he won't even remember. Can't you see how much better off he'll be growing up far away from all that until he's ready to take it? And it's like that paragraph right there explains exactly, if you don't realize it, is why Dumbledore hires Lockhart in Chamber of Secrets, because this is what Harry could have been
Yes,
if
yeah.
he had like grown up maybe somewhere besides the Dursleys. Doesn't mean the Dursleys was a great choice. He says it's the best place for him, and it's like, you really, if you want to like unpack that sentence, when he's saying the best place, he doesn't mean it's the nicest place for him. He means it's the literal safest place, because Voldemort actually cannot get to him there.
Yes, absolutely. And you know, I think that this is, again, probably where Dumbledore, because we know eventually when Dumbledore does go and speak to the Dursleys again, face to face, he does sort of mention that, like, you know, when I left him on your doorstep all those years ago, I really hope that you would like love him and treat him as your own son, and I see that you've clearly not done that.
Right.
You know, and I think he makes a little remark about Dudley there. He's like, I can only be grateful that you haven't, you know, caused as much damage to Harry as you have to the boy sitting between you two.
They both look like someone here besides Dudley.
Yeah, so that conversation happened in halfway page. So we have a ways to go before we get to that.
Seeing him.
What do you mean? Dudley's been treated great.
Treated great. It's like, has he?
Yeah.
And you're,
but it's a good point, though, and I think that there's a lot to take away from that, because I actually highlighted that exact same that same sentiment, and I didn't actually write down the Lockhart, but I wrote down they did, after all, know James, and I think that there's a piece of that, like, you know, James is not for nothing, but like a you know, pretty cocky, arrogant kid. I mean, he has his own kind of like bullying tendencies, like you know, there's certain characteristics about him that like, you know, it seems as though like they always say, like, you know, Harry looks just like his father, except he got his mother's eyes, and it seems like also his mother's, you know, demeanor along the way, you know, which is something to kind of see like interesting be like a prevailing characteristic, you know, sort of through Harry. Despite maybe the Quidditch prowess we will eventually see him also exhibit.
Yeah, also has that.
Yeah, yep. But we did do one of my more favorite things that we've ever written for our Super Carlin Brothers YouTube channel was I think it was what if Sirius had raised Harry?
Yes.
You know, and instead, and
or it was really what if Neville was the chosen one?
That is exactly it. So what if Neville was the chosen one? In which case, what you would end up with is a scenario where Sirius is the one who raises Harry, and it was one of my favorite versions of Harry that we've ever concocted, because he sort of has some of the like jocular nature of James, but he's also got like that prevailing kindness, but then also Harry has like been raised by a very competent wizard for his whole life, so it's
he's
like
kind of got like a little bit like way more skill and knowledge of the wizarding world. He's sort of the Ron to Neville. Like in that version, Neville has been basically successfully hidden by the Fidelius charm until he's going to Hogwarts.
Yes.
So he has been shielded from the wizarding world almost entirely, in the same way Harry usually is, but his best friend ends up being Harry, so Harry's sort of the Ron to Neville's Harry.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Except you know, like, but Harry's also got like the skill.
Yeah, but Harry's way more capable,
Yeah.
because it turns out when he's raised by Sirius, he's just teaching him all sorts of stuff and breaking the rules all the time. So
It was a blast. It was
yeah,
a blast.
that one's a really good version. So if you want to check that out, yeah, what if Neville was the chosen one?
There you go.
I mentioned that we would address the chapter art. So I love the chapter art in the books. I feel like that like formed the first pictures of like what I thought the characters looked like when we were growing up. So what do you think? The Boy Who Lived chapter art, chapter 1. It's just Harry sitting in a bundle of blankets underneath the stars.
I think it's beautiful.
Yeah.
Yeah, I really love it. You can see his little tiny.
Also, the only nice thing about it is that it doesn't look like it had started raining yet, anyway. So, since it said that it probably would rain that night.
scar there.
There
on his
is, yeah. You
forehead,
can see the little scar.
I mean, again, because it goes back to that comment that I made, but I mean, it just makes me so mad. It makes me so sad for such a little, like innocent child who just basically like had so much, like kindness and promise and love all around him, and to sort of be stripped of that. And I think like in this way, like when I look at this image, it does make me so much more aware. Like, of course, like as Harry will get older, he'll be surrounded by his like dear friends, and I mean Ron and Hermione and the rest of the Weasleys and Ginny and the rest. I mean, they are his family, but like it does make you realize when you think about it, just from this little boy who had to grow up for 10 years, essentially completely isolated and mistreated by the people that he's with. And then the whole saga that he has to go on, I mean, it does make you just feel like how alone he was in some ways.
Yeah.
So I know that's probably like expanding beyond the image of a little boy wrapped up in blankets here a little bit, but I am glad to see that the stars are visible above him and it has not yet started raining.
Well, other than that, I think the only other thing I had written down here is, like you mentioned, was the one line that I felt like really stood out to me. It's like, you always talk about Harry Potter, the boy who lived, and it's not like a really it's a common phrase, but I feel like when you end the first chapter, just the final line with people toasting to Harry Potter, the boy who lived, like I get chills.
Oh, I know. Yeah. Yep. I mean, and it's like the symbol that Harry, kind of becomes to the wizarding world is, I mean, in a lot of ways, it's the expectations that he'll, as an individual, eventually face, which is like nobody can live up to the symbol that has been created around him for this defeat of someone who has caused so much darkness in this world. And against all odds, somehow, some way, Harry does.
Yeah,
it's
literally lives up.
Yeah, lives up, dies a little bit, and lives some more.
Lives again.
Yeah. So I mean, it's pretty incredible. I mean, it's just I don't know. It makes me so excited for the rest of the saga to come. I was really excited about just like one of the things that does blow my mind about this story is how much happens inside of one single chapter. Like I often think like you almost could have had like a prologue that tells you about the Dursleys a little bit, and then have chapter 1, the boy who lived, and pretty much start with McGonagall and Dumbledore's exchange on Privet Drive there.
Like just start with like Hagrid arriving or whatever.
Exactly. Yeah. Especially because it feels like that's sort of like when the part of the story you care the most about truly begins. It's like the magic.
Absolutely.
Yeah. It's like, if anything, it's like, can we get past the Dursleys just as soon as humanly possible?
I know.
I mean, I would like less time with them.
I know. What's interesting to me is that there's not zero magic in here. There's no wand magic just yet. I think the very first magic you ever see in the whole series is the Deluminator doing its thing.
Other than, of course, McGonagall being transformed.
Yeah, you see McGonagall as a transformed cat, but I guess when you're introduced to it, you maybe don't know that yet. So
Okay, yeah.
I guess, either you could count it as McGonagall or the Deluminator, and then, of course, she transforms, and then there's that. And then there's the flying motorbike as well.
Right, yeah.
So lots of stuff there.
Yep. Other little fun fact, I just discovered this today, actually. I did not know this, but Privet Drive, I always assumed was supposed to be a little bit of a play on the word private.
Oh.
And I had not, maybe you knew this, I didn't. Privet is a kind of hedge.
Oh.
And I think that they are typically hedges that are, in fact, used.
Okay, I did not know that. So that was need to find out for this one. Yeah, I certainly thought it meant private when my dad was reading it to me, so that was neat to find out. But it meant something I didn't pick it up.
Used like in suburban neighborhoods to kind of be barriers between your home and your neighbors.
Oh,
so
that's funny.
It is,
I did not realize. I also thought it was Private Drive.
Yeah,
because I like to be private.
Oh, actually, on that note, so these are two things I misheard as a child. So I actually thought that was Private Drive. I didn't like the word privet as a probably 9-year-old, didn't register to me as meaning anything at all. The other was, of course, Dad was reading it to us, and I always heard Albus Dumbledore's name as Elvis.
Elvis.
So in my mind, I literally...
Okay, I heard it as the correct pronunciation when I was having the book read to me. But I can see why Ben, as a 9-year-old, would make that mistake of Elvis to Elvis. But yeah, right. Yeah, say the B instead of the V, if you know what I mean. Yeah.
I always assumed that I for some reason, I very quickly embodied Dumbledore with a sort of like very musical,
like king of rock and roll. You know?
yeah, kind of vibe. So I think I even remember getting like I think I was talking to you actually, and this probably would have been one of those first moments where our age difference or your just better memory than mine came up. But I remember saying well, didn't Elvis say something? And you were like, Elvis, and it was like the headmaster, and you were like, it's Albus, and I was like, it is not. Where's the book?
Yeah.
And it was like, we went and picked it up, and I was like, literally, it's like one of those moments where I was like, someone changed it.
Someone changed it, man.
Certainly.
Mandela effect or whatever.
Yep,
This is another little tiny thing like that. This is just a funny change from like the UK version of the book to the American one. It is the first word Dudley, or the new word that Dudley learned that day. In the American version, it's won't. But if you go to the UK version, it's shan't.
Oh, that's awesome.
Shan't? Shan't do it?
Shan't.
Shan't.
Amazing.
I love the idea of a little baby just being like, shan't. Shan't.
It's especially funny because I always think that in all the various languages across the world and stuff like that, very frequently, not always, it seems like the word for we say mom and dad, but or some variation of something similar to like mama, papa, those types of words. And I sometimes wonder whether or not it's small children's early development of speech that actually is the etymology behind those words.
Oh, probably.
Which in the event, I've heard my own daughter say "won't" before or no.
Yeah.
But it makes me wonder if the word "shan't" is actually created in part by toddler speak. It's
could be, yeah, right.
A word created by youngins that the rest of us continue to use the rest of our lives. So that's funny. I did not realize that was different in the different narratives. And speaking of Dudley, looking forward to chapter 2, which will be our next episode, The Vanishing Glass. The chapter art is as soon as you turn over
wonderful.
is a very prominent photo of little Dudders there surrounded by his many presents.
36, counted them myself.
Oh man! So as ever, guys, thank you so much for tuning in to the very first episode of Through the GriffinDoor. As this is our opening weekend, we will have our first 3 chapters all delivered to you here on October 1st, 2023. Henceforth, after this week, though, we will be going chapter by chapter with one new episode every Sunday each week. So be sure to subscribe and tune in and do all the various things. The show should be available wherever pods are cast. And until next time,
We shall see you through the GriffinDoor.
Okay, so guys, that was the first video on the first chapter of the Philosopher's Stone. But you would just follow it at in that comment section down below. And we'll just check right into chapter 2 next week. So keep you guys out for that video. But yeah, that was a pretty good chapter from the first week, from the first book. I told you about some of it for sure. Maybe it was that Americans had wrote and British had said. Forgot to use the word, but it was Newton. That was Newton. But anyway, before we go there, I just want you guys to know that this video is sponsored by Jelly, which is a energy drink company. And on the day that I'm recording this, I'm just about to finish my Jersey Age brand and move right on to my new brand that I ordered like a month ago. So you guys will see what that brand is after I finish it. As I finish my Jersey Age, which I will probably do this week. Or the week that this video is being recorded anyway. And if you want 10% off your order of Jelly, then use my code DJB1User and that's in the checkout and you'll get 10% off your order. And again, that's this series. That's DJ User in all caps, and that's the promo code you guys put in when you're checking out to get 10% off your order of Jelly and DJ, so you can get 10% off the stickers or the powers of both. So, I hope you guys enjoyed this first video, of this series, and I'll see you guys in the next video.